Hi, I'm Deb. I'm the traveling stocking stitcher, and yes, that is the royal wave because I was at the Queen City Stitch Retreat in Charlotte, North Carolina for Chatelaine Weekend 2026, and it was fabulous. I am going to show you the brag table, all Chatelaine brag table, and I figured I had to meet the occasion. So I have put on my tiara that was gifted to the team by a wonderful attendee, Sam. Thank you very much on behalf of the whole team. And I found as much bling as I could put on. I've got my rhinestone sunglasses, which I highly recommend if you're going to watch this video because it's going to put your eye out. I know they say that, but this really might do it this time. But before I show you the brag table, I do have something else I want to show you. I want to show you the retreat piece. Let me go get it. So the retreat piece was done by Ten Eyck of Sozna Designs. Unfortunately, Martina Rosenberg, the designer for Chatelaine Designs, passed away in 2017, so can't have her do a retreat piece. And so Katie, for the last 2 years, has done a beautiful job. You'll see some of the rag table. Some people did the water lilies that she did last year, and this year she did a piece called Flowers in the Sun. And she's an artist. She's very talented. She's a stitcher. She does some beautiful things. She's done some mirabilia conversions that you would not believe, but just fantastic stuff. So Katie designed this for the retreat, and it will be available for sale probably in the fall, and I think ECC, European Cross Stitch Company, will be kitting it up. But we also got, as retreat members, not only the chart, but we also got the bead pack and the metallics that go with it. So one of the perks of going to this Queen City Stitch Retreat. So here it is. And there's a core cross stitch in the middle, so at first you're just stitching all the cross stitches, and then most of the specialty stitches in the beads lay on top of it. So it's just very pretty. I did this on a 28 count dried sage from Oak Crown Studio. It is an opalescence, just to add a little more shine, and it's kind of almost a bluish, more than green. You would think a dried sage would be green, but it's got a little bit of blue hue to it. But you can see, that's why I'm out in the sun today, so you can see the shine, you can see the opalescence, you can see all the beads. And you'll see more of these on the brag table that I will show you, done by different people on different fabrics, and we'll get to see that. There is another retreat coming up in October, the 15th through the 17th, down in Charlotte. It's the Queen City Wensler weekend. It's Teresa Wensler. Teresa won't be there, but we are stitching her designs, and I think there's probably a few seats left. I mean, people sign up in January, and then by October a lot of things happen, so we always have a wait list that you can get on if there's not room, and you might likely get a seat. So if you're interested, check it out at the queencitystitchretreat.com website. And even if you don't stitch Wenslers, I don't either, but it's a great time. So what I'm decided to do is I picked out a small one because I've heard they can be a little bit intimidating, and so I found Majestic Peacock, like a 5x7 size design on a 28 count. But I found this frame that I have, and it's just slightly smaller. It's a little like 4.5 by 6.5, and it's got these lovely little peacock colored rhinestones on it. So I thought, you know, people were doing mini mirrors a couple of years ago and doing them on a smaller count. So I decided I'm going to do 2/1 tent stitch to do my Wensler. But yeah, you can see here my start. I started this yesterday and I'm at like over 6% already. So it's moving along really quickly. Not having to do that second leg is fabulous. And I'm happy with the coverage. So I do have it in Pattern Keeper, but it's not respecting the symbols. So I keep a close look at the key and make sure that when I click on one of the squares on the chart in Pattern Keeper, that I look at the key and see what that really is, because it's not matching up with the colors I've inputted for it. So just one thing to look out for if you're going to do that. But yeah, I'm pleased with how it's going to look. I think it's going to fit in there. As far as blends, since I'm using 2 strands, that works okay. There are some fractionals, I don't know if you can even see them, that I'm not afraid to pierce the fabric, but we'll see how it goes when I get something next to it. So because I'm going one direction with the stitch, it's a little hard to do the fractionals that point the other direction. So alright, so now the moment you've all been waiting for. I give you the brag table. So here's another version of the Flowers of the Sun. This was done on Lurking in the Dark fabric from Oak Crown Studios, 28 count, and this was stitched by Maggie, one of our co-hosts at the retreat, and she is at kitschywips is her Instagram and her Flosstube channel. And I'm going to intersperse both video, which seems to pick up the sparkle better, and still photos, which seems to pick up more true colors of the fabric. And it was 147 by 147 stitch count. It fit really nicely in a 11 by 11 Q-snap. And this is a whip done by Amy, was the other co-host of the retreat, and she did this on the called for fabric. This is Mushroom Stew. People could pre-order this. This is a 28 count, and I think this was an opalescent that she used. And she is the owner and dyer of Oak Crown Studios. And she was the fabric vendor for the retreat. And this was done on 28 count. It was a one-off from BeStitchMe, and it was stitched by Alma, the tattooed crafting owl, on Instagram and YouTube. And of course, this one was stitched by me. I am the traveling stocking stitcher. And here you can see all four models together in one shot, so you can kind of get a sense of what the different fabric does to the design and choose what color. Actually, I think pretty much any color. There are so many colors in the design that any color really will work well with it. And as I mentioned, people got the chart and the specialty flosses in the bead pack. They got an advanced list of the DMC to bring, and they could pre-order the fabric. When I was outside doing the introduction, I forgot to turn it sideways and let you look at the topography of this thing, because this is one of the few designs I've ever done that actually has terrain because of all of the crystals and the specialty stitches on top of the stitching. It's like a relief map. And there are over 1,300 beads and crystals that go on this thing. And her instructions are very detailed. The diagrams and the information about how to do the specialty stitches are very clear. As a matter of fact, there is a chart that she has in here that's a full chart that has color blocks with back stitch endpoints. And that shows you every place the needle comes up and every place the needle goes down on every one of the specialty stitches. And it was invaluable for me doing this piece. I really found that helpful. And this is a picture of everybody at the retreat that started Flowers of the Sun at the retreat. And by my count, it looks like about 28 people. Now on to the chatelaines. So this is just a real quick sneak preview of what we're going to see. I'm going to run through the table real fast here, and then we will go through individually and let you see more details on them. And while I'm showing you stuff here, I am just going to kind of brain dump everything I know about chatelaines in here to help educate you if you're new to chatelaines. So we'll take the opportunity to give you as much as I can think of about chatelaines. Chatelaines are known for their large kaleidoscope-like mandala layouts inspired by gardens, world architecture, and historical art. They use a lot of specialty flosses and a lot of sparkly crystals and beads. If you want to follow them, you can look at @Chatelaine_designs. That's their official Instagram. And they do have a website, chatelaine.de. They are a German company that sells the PDFs. And I'll talk more about how to get charts and all that stuff as we go through here. And you may want to sign up for their newsletter at that website, because they occasionally offer discounts and show you different chatelaines and all kinds of news that's going on with chatelaines. There are over 100 items on this brag table. And here we go. This is Desert Mandala. This was done by Liz Steiner on a 28 count unidentified fabric. But it is a lovely lilac, which really brings out the colors in the center and really makes the mountains glow. And I think it's the Monument Valley that's on there. It looks like it's sunrise or sunset. And Liz was at table 3. And again, this purple just shows up the center so well, and this beautiful moon and the coyotes howling. And I don't think this would ever have occurred to me to use, but it clearly is the right choice. That's the fabulous thing about coming to see these things in person. You see things that never would have dawned on you. And because like you can see, this purple shows up the lightning and the the Joshua trees, the cacti, and it's just a perfect choice. And here we have Friendship Sampler. This is a whip by Cheryl Grissett. And this is water lily beaded tile. I mentioned earlier that we might be seeing these. This was the 2025 retreat exclusive that Katie Ten Eyck had done from Sosna Designs. And look at these fish. They're done one over one in the center, and these koi fish, and they look like they're wet. It's incredible detail. Those pink flowers, those are all beads. It was inspired by Monet's garden. This one was stitched by Sarah at table 10, and it was a 28 count ice blue linen that called for. We've got another one from Liz Steiner. This is Alhambra Gardens. There were 3 Alhambra Gardens on the table this year, so a very popular one. And it was an unspecified fabric. As much as possible, I will tell you what I know, and I will include people's Instagram and Flosstubes if they have one. But thanks to Maggie also, who provided labels in advance so people could have the best chance of telling us what they stitched things on, because we knew people wanted to know that information. This is also on my to-do list. I was actually maybe going to start it at the retreat, but I ordered some fabric. Not quite in time to get it, so I will be starting it sometime in the future because I was very inspired by the ones I saw here. This is another one from Sarah who did water lilies, and her Instagram is a stitchy cat, a stitchy cat. This is called Medieval Herb Garden. This particular one, it's a set of 4, is Nigella sativa, and she did it on a 28 count antique white. And she wasn't sure if she had it in her to do all 4 of these, maybe one more because the border is the same on all 4 of them. So here we have Christmas Tree Mandala. This was done by Susie Smith. She is at SUZYQNTX1 on Instagram, and she was at table 10. She did this on a 28 count opalescent mystery linen, and this is a nice small one. People think of chatelaines as being big, but this is a nice small Christmas one you could do. Here's another Liz Steiner one from table 3. She did, there's 2 Alpine Gardens. One is Alpine Gardens, the other one is an Outlander theme one, and she did a mashup with the 2 of them. And so if you're familiar with the Outlander series of books, and I went to Scotland a couple years ago and found out that there was a lot of settlers from North Carolina that came from Scotland. There's a huge Scottish population in North Carolina, and she did a tribute to, I think, some ancestors. And apparently the strawberries, I think, are part of the Outlander version of this one. And there's some over 1 thistles that are in the corner that are apparently not on the original Alpine Garden. Now Liz Steiner has been very busy from table 3 because this is another one of hers. This is Taj Mahal, and it was done in a 28 count Tempest. And there's several dyers that have a fabric called Tempest. So picture this plus under the sea primitive hair. None of those look particularly green to me, so I'm not sure exactly. There might be somebody else that has a Tempest fabric. But this Taj Mahal has got very light and pastel colors, and sometimes if you see this on too light a fabric, it washes out. But putting it on this darker green color really does it a favor, really does justice. She's got a real talent for picking fabric. And I apologize for the shadowing. I had to film during the day because the lighting got worse after dark, and I tried additional lighting, but that just made for more shadows. So the table was kind of against the wall, so I couldn't get out of my way. So in some of these shots, you're going to see it more than others, but you can unfortunately see that in this shot. And this is Water Garden. There was a stitch along started by Maggie and Amy, the co-hosts, in 2025, and I think a lot of people did their first chatelaine. I know I participated. I didn't get it done like Liz Steiner at Table 3 did here. She did this on a 28 count opalescent, so it inspired me because I have not gotten to the beads or any of that kind of stuff. So seeing this made me want to pull it out and finish it up. Corners, you can see the dense sections of roses. This is one that's probably one you want to do on a 28 count, especially with a hand dyed that shrinks, because if you've got really closely beaded, those corners, the blue with the rose in the middle, that's all solid beads. Here's a whip of Water Garden. It was done on 32 count by Melissa Breckenridge at Table 5. And even though she did this on 32, it's not a hand dyed, so I think she'll probably be all right with putting those beads on there. That's a consideration. If it's really heavily hand dyed, it might shrink up. And we encourage people, because we know chatelaines take a long time to do, so we wanted people to put their whips out on the table, not just their finishes, because people want to see them. They don't care how far they're done. They want to see different fabrics. They want to see different designs. There's over 400 designs. And this is butterfly lace on 32 count, also done by Melissa Breckenridge of Table 5. And she had it on the stretcher bar on the frames. And I'm going to put in the name of it because it's a Polish name if you're interested in the location in Poland where they make these things, because I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. So you can Google it if you are interested in it. And then this is the detail of butterfly lace. It's that perimeter there, those almost watercolor looking lilies, I guess they would be. I think that's my favorite part of this whole design. I mean, the butterflies are amazing with the over one, but yeah, I love that effect. And this center is so gorgeous as well. Beautiful job. And then here's the still shot, so you can see the comparison between just the way that the camera shows it off a little bit differently. Melissa Breckenridge over at Table 5 has also been a very busy chatelaine stitcher. This is her mini Mystery 06 on a 32 count antique white, and she's got it all framed up and it's really beautiful. And if you want to see a lot of chatelaines, don't forget the hashtags. There's two of them that are important. There's hashtag Chatelaine Wednesday that Maggie and Amy started a few years ago to just encourage people and encourage themselves. They were intimidated by chatelaines, didn't want to get them out, or afraid to stitch them, and so they started this hashtag for, public encouragement and public accountability, and if they saw it, they would get it out and do it. And now we also see another mini mystery. This one is 02 on a 32 count antique white by, you guessed it, Melissa Breckenridge. And so they are nice companion pieces for each other. And the other hashtag is Chatelaine Stitching. And this is the one that Chatelaine Designs, Ella, who is Martina's daughter, uses, and she will see her chatelaines and other people will see her chatelaines if you use that hashtag. So there's a little tip for you if you're looking for or wanting to show other people your chatelaine. This is a gorgeous piece. This is the Jessica workshop. There are 4 workshops of specialty stitches, and I've always thought this was beautiful. And then I saw Flor Delgado did it on 28 count black, and it is just stunning. Look at those Jessicas, those, I don't even know what you call them. They have a word, parabolas. I think that's the word. So just look at it. And Jessica's on top of Jessica's. I think she started this at last year's retreat because you could pick one of the 4 workshops. And I think this is one that she started there. And I don't know why, but everything looks better on black fabric. Unfortunately, it's harder to stitch on, but it just makes it just so much better. And there wasn't a tag on this little butterfly motif, but I tracked it down. It is from Butterfly Garden Sampler Chatelaine. So I don't know who stitched it. I don't know what fabric it's on. So if you are the person, feel free to self-identify in the comments. And this is what the finished design looks like, but it's just the little butterfly on the table with nobody claiming it. So we'd like to know who did it. Thanks. And this was done by Sarah Pagney. It is Mini Mandala Circle 1, and her Instagram is at SPAGNI, Spagney. And she was at Table 2. And may I just say that I think cross-stitchers are some really incredibly bright people. There were, by my count that I know of, 5 doctors, 2 of them at table 2. I talked to those guys for a little while. They were fantastic. I went to dinner with them one night, and they're just wonderful people, so it was a delight to meet them. And I talked to another woman at another table who used to work at the Pentagon on AI before AI was a thing, and now helps people with startups. Just brilliant, brilliant people. This is Flower Medallions. It's sort of a companion piece to Flower Fairy Garden, and it was done on Binka by Oak Crown Studios by Ten Eyck, who is Kate, Neyck, on Instagram, and of course Sosna Designs that I mentioned earlier. And you can replace fairies with the dragonflies, which is what she did on this one. And I mentioned the specialty stitch workshops. There's 4 of them, and Ten Eyck did all 4 of them, plus she designed one in the middle. So clockwise we have Jessica, Rice, Eyelets, and Rhodes. And then this is Katie's design here. And here we have Mini Mandala Circle 01. This is also done by Ten Eyck on I think it's a charcoal fabric. Very pretty. Again, another example of the power of the dark fabric. It really lends itself to being very dramatic. And as I'm going through here, if I'm going too slow, you want to see more detail. If I'm going too fast, you might want to just adjust your settings on your video in YouTube. Just click on the settings icon, the little gear, and then you can go to playback speed and speed it up or slow it down, whichever you want to do. And this is Small Haman Oasis. This is the middle section of it, and this was done by Ten Eyck. I'm not sure what fabric it was, but this is her version of it. This is the pear. This is one of 4 from the summer fruit collection, and these fruits were the retreat salad stitch along. It was started in preparation for the retreat, and this is Sarah Pagney, her version of that. It's on 32 count Zweigart Antique White Lugana, and we'll see several other of these fruits throughout the rag table. And here we have another water garden. This one is by Melissa Wilson, and this is on a 28 count Oak Crown Studio Opalescent, very pretty shiny opalescent. And you know, a lot of people have thought about maybe stopping and not putting on all the balustrades and stuff because it's just pretty on its own. If you wanted to just do that much, that might be a solution if you didn't want to do the whole thing. And this is Beaded Rose Tile by Melissa Ellis on 28 count Platinum Zweigart. And her Instagram is MLEllis, ELLIS 83. And she was at table 2. And I know Melissa also did Cordoba patios, which is a tricky one to do because it was one of the last ones Martina did, and there aren't very good instructions on it, or if any. And she did a lovely job on it, and I saw it early on, didn't get a picture of it, and then it was gone. So I'm not sure what happened to it. And I know Melissa was still there all weekend because I saw her fairly late in the retreat. So not sure where it went. Same thing happened to White Nights in St. Petersburg. There was one out there, and then it disappeared. And that's one people always want to see because it's huge. It was a whip, but it was there, but then it was gone. And it's possible it was a whip, so maybe they were working on it during the retreat. Next we have Les Parfums. This is on a Fiberlicious Mermaid Mules, and this was done by Maggi, kitschywips, our host. And I did try to keep these in order as much as possible, but I didn't want to get in the way of looking at the items on the brag table, so I may have jumped around. So if you're seeing a little inconsistency, if you were at the retreat, you were right, they're not in the same order that you saw them in. And Maggi just recently finished up Water Lilies from the 2025 retreat exclusive from Sews and Designs, and we got everything. We got the fabric, we got the beads, we got the specialty floss. All you had to do is supply your own DMC, and so she recently did this. There is the fish in the middle. You can do over 2 or over 1. The over 1s look really impressive, so but you do have the option. And I think it was Maggi who did them over 2 to begin with, and then she
pulled them out and redid them as over ones because it's a whole different look. This is Beaded Scarab Tile, also by Maggi or kitschywips, and she did this on a 28 count Chai Love You linen from Fiberlicious Yummy Fibers. And there are several of these beaded tiles. There's a Marie Antoinette's rose tile, there's a beaded rose tile, there's a toadstool tile, a hummingbird tile, a butterfly tile, a peacock tile. We'll see some of those. A swan's tile, a dragonfly tile. So there's all kinds of, if you're interested in trying your hand at beads, those are great ones. They're not huge. They've got some cross stitch, but a lot of beads. And a lot of negative space, so they're surprisingly fast to do. And this is Rainy Day Seasons Autumn. This was done by Maggi, who is kitschywips. This is Beaded Butterfly Tile by Alma, the Tattooed Crafting Owl. It's unknown fabric, but I think it's hibiscus linen from BeStitchMe, which is what Maggi used to do this as a new start at the retreat. I think they used the same fabric, but it's a really pretty design. Like the butterflies on this one in the main area are just solid beads. There you can see all of those beads on there. And those delicate beads line up so nicely if you just do a full cross through them. And here we have another one of the workshops. This is the Eyelets workshop. It's number 4 in the set. And this was done by Kathleen Simpson at table 17. She's got a nice rustic frame on it there. And this is Paris Mandala. This was done by Alma, the Tattooed Crafting Owl, who is also on our team. And this was unknown fabric. But she did this one in all DMC. And here are those beautiful lanterns that Martina does. See these kind of almost beaded tiles in the corner a little bit. And here's these little lovebirds. I just love these little birds on here. I think I get a close-up look here. There they are. And nice little eyelets in the corner there, it looks like, under the Eiffel Tower. And we have another Paris further down the brag table that was done by Angela. And so if you wanted to look and see, can I tell the difference between DMC and using all the specialty flosses, you can look at those and do a comparison of them. It looks beautiful. One of the benefits of using DMC over Glorianas is the wait time. If you're using specialty flosses, particularly during COVID, there was a long wait time for Glorianas. That's gotten a little better. Unfortunately, now the wait time is for Petite Treasure Braid, a little harder to replace. They bought Krynic, and so they're in the process of retooling their operations. So, you know, metallics you kind of have to go with, and Petite Treasure Braid is pretty easy to use. But if you want to use DMC, that prevents you from having to wait for Glorianas. The charts usually have DMC conversions, and just check the materials list that are available on the chatelaine.de website. So you have a list of those. The only times, sometimes it will say that there isn't a good replacement because it's a very variegated material, and so those are the ones that maybe you don't want to replace. And Martina tend to use the same colors over and over again, so if you've got some in your stash, you could probably pick and choose which Glorianas you actually do need to buy. And European Cross Stitch Company does have separated out the Glorianas and the MPIs from the other specialty flosses, and so you can choose not to put them in your cart. And the MPIs are not terribly variegated at all, so that's another way that you could possibly save some money. I did a video on 50 ways to save money on chatelaine, so you might want to check out too, that's got tips like this. And this is Convent's Herbal Garden Mandala done on avocado, and this was done by Debbie DeWitt. This is a whip, there is more to it, but this is the center of that piece. And this one is Mini Mystery Mandala 02, and this one was done by an unknown stitcher. We had a few of these on the brag table. One of them was made into a pincushion. You'll see that shortly. And here is another Jessica workshop. This looks like an antique white linen. It was unlabeled. And you can see how pretty those Jessicas are. Those, again, those parabola with the variegated floss really adds dimension to them. And this is why I take video in addition to just still photos, because when you take these, the video every once in a while pays off. The sun hit it just exactly right, and bam, there was the flare. And then from that video, I was able to capture a still shot, so I've got the fire on the chatelaine showing up. And here we have Halloween Kitty. This one was done by kitschywips, who is Maggie, and it was done on kitschywips because Amy from Oak Crown Studios did the fabric, and she likes to name fabric sometimes after her friends. And so this beautiful purple color was a great choice. For whatever reason, Halloween looks great on purple. It doesn't make sense to me, but maybe it's just the contrast with the orange. So you can see all the little creepy crawlies down here, and the cats around the different sides, and smiling pumpkins in the corner. Very fun one. And you don't always think of Halloween when you think Chatelaine, but she has a number of Halloween designs. So if you're a Halloween stitcher, you might want to check those out. And here we have our accomplishment bells. Whenever you do something that you're proud of at the retreat, you just stand up and ring that bell, and whether you started something new or what have you. And then we have this lovely lavender garden pin cushion. It was in A Gift of Stitching, exclusive by Martina Weber, and this was done by Amy. Amy does pin cushions for the brag table so people can pin their labels onto their work. And here is the community orts, old raggedy threads that we collect from year to year, from retreat to retreat, and so everybody contributes. And here is always a crowd favorite. This is Sparkling Peacock Mandala. This was done by Elena at Table 15. Her Instagram and her Flosstube is at Stitching Farmer, and it's Stitching Pharmer because she's a pharmacist. And And all the peacocks on the different sides are a different color. That's always a nice thing to have on a mandala, so you're not stitching the exact same thing over and over again. And I do have to apologize for my video editing skills. Since the last time I did one of these videos, I had to get a new laptop, and then I had to get the updated software for the editing, which leaped several versions, and it's a little trickier than it was, so I'm still refining my skills. Here's one you don't see very often. This is the Christmas tree skirt. This is done by Dawn Powell, Dawn TCB, and she did it on a self-dyed pale green 18 count tree skirt she got from Amazon. And she had a little note on her tag that said, you can touch it if your hands are clean, with a little smiley face. We all know the rules in the stitching world. And yeah, beautiful. I was able to spread it out a little bit and show you everything. So the snowflakes she did 1/1, and the trees and the border she used 3/2. And every one of these trees, she said, are different that are on the tree skirt. So, Martina just such attention to detail and creating, you could just create the same tree over and over again, but no, got to do different ones for every side. And the challenge, she said, with finding the tree skirt itself was trying to find any cross-stitch fabric as big as she needed. She needed about a 48 inches in diameter, so that's why she went with the pre-made tree skirt. Wasn't designed to be stitched on, but it worked out okay for her. And she attached a white backing and nearly 5 yards of beaded trim. She said in the instructions that Martina didn't think that crystals were the right place for a tree skirt, but she said on the other hand, if you want to add crystals, you can buy a bucket full and add them into every open space. And if you know Dawn, she did exactly that. She has the Fob Factory, which is just full of shiny stuff on Etsy. If you need some shiny stuff, she's your person. And she does make sure that she doesn't put this on the floor. She puts it under a tabletop tree. And as I mentioned, Dawn said that she hadn't seen pictures of this online, so her goal was to get it onto the website. And this is my little plug for people to, if you've got a chatelaine that you can't find pictures of, you're doing the community a service by including those. So chatelaine.de and the Chatelaine Gallery has ways that you can submit your photos. We'd love to see them, and because sometimes even the ones that are out there, the photos are a little older and not great. So if you've got an updated version, we'd ask you to do that. And this is Egypt Mandala on this beautiful fabric. She said it was days gone by from Picture This Plus, and I couldn't find that, so I don't know if it's a discontinued fabric. This was done by Julia T, and her Instagram is Donna Peppa, Donnapeppa, all one word, and she was at table 14. And this Egypt mandala is just gorgeous. I, usually stitch things that are places I've been, and I've never been to Egypt, so I'm either going to have to go to Egypt or I'm going to have to change my guidelines about what I stitch because this one's just fabulous. And those purple lotus flowers against that brownish tan color, just really, really pretty. And while you're looking at this, I also want to put in a word for Flosstubes. If you do a Flosstube recap, we'd love to know about it. I keep a playlist for Queen City Stitch Retreat on my channel. I am the traveling stocking stitcher, so you can just send me a note on Instagram and let me know if you've got one out there. Tag me or the Queen City Stitch Retreat. And in the past, Maggie has kept a playlist as well on her channel, which is kitschywips. I know of at least a few people. Alli Zia's Crafty, who's on our team, she was quick on the mark and she did a really nice chatelaine recap of what chatelaines are and what fabric you use and where you get the stuff. So check her out. She's got a fantastic recap. And another great recap was done by Debbie, who is Owl and Gator on Instagram, and on Flosstube she is Owl and Gator Stitcher. So check her out too. And this one is Desert Night Tent Mandala. It was Mystery XIX 19, and Martina used to release like a stitch along. You didn't know what it was going to be, and then you'd get different pieces every month and stitch them. And this one was done on 28 count Zweigart ivory by Victoria, who was at table 15. And I didn't even realize that this was a whip when I first looked at it on the brag table, because it's already so shiny and bright, but it doesn't even have beads or anything on it yet. We do have a finished version coming up, but just even with the floss alone, it's really incredible. This is another lovely piece that haven't been really to some nomadic desert land, but now I gotta stitch it. It does look like she's got some beads in the middle. I've found if it's a small enough chatelaine I can fit it into, I like to use a Q-snap rather than a scroll frame. But if it's small enough, I don't mind putting in the seed beads and like the Tila beads, and it just doesn't get caught. It's the crystals and things that get caught. And with the retreat exclusive for this year, I found that that helped with placement because it fit in the 11 by 11 Q snap. I was able to put the beads on, and then it kind of broke up the beads and the specialty stitches because the specialty stitches were a little challenging. So every once in a while you need a little breather. So I do a little beading, do a little specialty stitches. Here's another one of the summer fruits. This is a pear. This is on 32 count mocha from Weeks Dye Works. And this one was done by Betsy Soto. She was at table 21. And her Instagram is revbets_stitches. REVBETS. And I don't think I can see a single plain old cross stitch, maybe a few in that pear. It's all specialty stitches. And here is another mini mystery mandala 06. This is called Moonstone, and it was done on 28 count antique white Zweigart, done by Victoria at table 15. I mentioned the Chatelaine Gallery in passing. Just Google Chatelaine Gallery, and it's got pictures of a bunch of these chatelaines. So if you're new to chatelaines, that is a fantastic resource to see actually stitched designs, because you know how the mock-ups never do it justice. And another great resource is the Chatelaine Support Group on Facebook. It's a private group, and there are, I think, like 8,000 members. So if you have a question, or if you want to look at what people have done on different fabric or whatever, just check that out. And this is Fire Lily. This one was stitched by Paige Fowler, and she is Paige Fowler 40 at table 20. And this design is not my style at all, but I just love Paige's version of it. You know that old saying, "It stopped me dead in my tracks"? That literally happened. I was just walking by the brag table and caught this out of the corner of my eye, and I just stopped, immediately turned, and walked over to see it. So this was done on a fabric from Atomic Ranch called Freeze, which is spelled inconsistently on even on their own website. Sometimes it has an E in the end, sometimes it doesn't. So it's Friez and sometimes an E. And Paige makes some lovely bags. I have one sitting right next to me as I record this, and she has an Etsy site called Pouches by Paige. So check her out. Lovely work that she does. And it's Paige, P-A-G-E, not P-A-I-G-E. And here's another one from Paige. This is Octopus Treasure Cave, and this one was done on Sapphire by Fiber on a Whim. And seeing this octopus reminds me that somebody stitched that for the Smalls Exchange at our last retreat last year, and we did have a Smalls Exchange this year, and not all of them were chatelaines, so I don't know that I will include it in this video. We tried to keep the brag table exclusively to chatelaines just because they're so big, and to display anything other than that we just wouldn't have the room. But I will include the pictures of the things that people made for the Smalls Exchange. So look for that on the Queen City Stitch Retreat Instagram. We also have a Queen City Stitch Retreat Facebook group. It's a private group, but you can join even though you might not be attending the retreat. If you want to see what goes on and learn information, sign up for that. And if you are an attendee, we have a private Facebook group for the people that will be coming to the retreat, so you can get to know people and exchange information about ride shares and share the stuff that you're doing, and we have updates in there too. So it's a fun thing to get to know people. We have Zooms, so people can participate in that as well once a month and get to know each other before the retreat. And these are a couple of bell pulls or band samplers that are companion pieces. This is the Amethyst and Sapphire. The Amethyst is on the left, the Sapphire is on the right. It's on an unidentified fabric, but it's got this lovely banding on the side, so I think it might be designed for that. I don't think that she stitched that in there. This was done by Cheryl Grissett, and she was at table 12. And my apologies for any extraneous noise you might be hearing. They decided to resurface the side street today, and so you'll hear jackhammers and trucks backing up and all kinds of noises. And here I got a little closer shot of the edges, so you can see that design that's on the edge here. And here's not one, but all four of the summer fruits. Elizabeth Broniak at table 14 did every single one of them, and then had this great idea to make them into pillows, put this great cording around them, different cording for every one, and then hang them on this incredible tree stand. Insert your own joke here about low-hanging fruit. So we've got the pear, she's got this lovely 28 count tan linen that she used for it. And this one is the cherries. And she used different cording, but complementary cording that matched the individual fruit for each pillow. I've heard people say on these it's easier to do the specialty stitches first and do the cross stitch later because the cross stitches are few and far between. That's kind of backwards on how you normally do chatelaines. And the only pineapple we saw at the whole retreat and then she also had an apple finish. We'll see some apple whips later on, but this was the only apple finish that I saw on the brag table. And Elizabeth also made a lovely grime guard, royal blue grime guard with gold charms as a gift for her table mates, and she gave one to me too, even though I wasn't sitting at her table. I did sit at their table for a little while and stitch for them, but thank you very much, Elizabeth. I was very honored. And then here you can see all four of the fruits together. And the Chatelaine.de website has a link to some specialty stitches, the commonly used ones that are in chatelaines, and they show not only right-hand but also left-handed approaches for how to do those. So if you're a left-handed person, that's something I don't know I've ever seen before. And this is Summer Garden Mandala. This was the 2026 Stitch Along design. And this is Amy's. She's doing it on Toasted Coconut from Oak Crown Studios. And that is one of the fabrics that has been selected for possibility to use for the 2027 Stitch Along. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And this is a picture of everybody at the retreat who is participating in the 2026 SAL and their whips. And this is Little Tuscany. This is a whip that Maggie has going. She's doing it on 28 count tarnish. And I was going to use that. And then I saw Melanie Rowe do this on black at last year's retreat. And then I got this other idea. You'll see mine coming up. This is the whip that I was working on during the retreat. I started it about 2 weeks before the retreat. And now we're getting into my area of the brag table. This is Blue Moroccan Lace on 28 count white opalescent from Oak Crown Studios that I did. It's almost finished. I've got a ton of the beads on it. There's still some pockets in there. You see those white, almost butterfly shaped ones? Those are supposed to be a woven stitch, and I can't get them to look decent. There you can kind of see a woven stitch, or at least have a woven stitch before I gave up on it. And Dawn TCB has a version that's coming up in a bit here that you'll see, and she just put some beads and stuff in there instead, so I went over and thanked her for giving me the permission to do the same. Now this I couldn't get to load into Pattern Keeper, although I had a conversation with Flor Delgado who said that she was able to get it in by deleting all but the page with the chart on the PDF, and so this is a single page. That often causes trouble with Pattern Keeper. So thanks, Flor. I'll have to give that another try. Appreciate that. And there was a woman named Pat at the retreat, and she was at the brag table looking at this for the longest time. So I went up and talked to her about it, and she said, "I love this piece. It calls to me. I just don't know if I can do it." And I said, "You absolutely can." So we spent some time looking at it and talking about it, and she still wasn't totally convinced. And then later she came up to me and she said, "Could I do it on Ada?" And I said, "That's a brilliant idea, and I think she can. There aren't any fractionals, and you can swap out some of the specialty stitches. The beads should fit. That's a great idea." And I was so pleased later when she won the bead pack for Blue Moroccan Lace from the raffle. So you got this, Pat. You can do it. And there is a saying in the chatelaine community that's become kind of a mantra that it's just cross stitch. If you can cross stitch, you can stitch a chatelaine. And while you might not be able to do everyone on an Aida, just ask somebody that knows, somebody who's stitched it. They can give you some advice. This is Small Hamid Oasis. I did this on a 28 count Deep Ocean Opalescent linen from Fiberlicious Yummy Fibers. And it's a really amazing ombre that runs from about sky blue at the top to a dark teal at the bottom. It's still really hard to capture what this looks like in person. It's still not quite showing the true color, but I was so pleased when I found this fabric. It was really what I wanted to, because I'd seen somebody on Facebook that had done a mat for this. They'd done it, I think, on tarnish, and then they used a mat that was of this kind of a color, and I thought, well, the mat's really doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Maybe if I actually put it on that fabric, and there's enough gold surrounding it. As a matter of fact, if you look closely, I ran out of some of the colors, because the MPIs are almost the exact same colors. I ran out of some, so I had a few stitches that aren't done in there, if you can find them. You can't because it's exactly the same. Now here you can see the still photo is a little truer, but it's still not quite capturing the right color, but you get a little better sense in there. And this is about 16,198 stitches in Pattern Keeper, and it ends up being about 11.3 by 12.9 inches. And this is Lake Como. This is mine. It's in a 32 count Azure Blue Lugana, and this is from Needlework by Jim. And you see some two-tone rice stitches that are in there, and I've got one of the villas about halfway back stitched, and got another. Oh, these swans here, I did those as a smalls exchange last year. Just that little motif, made a little pillow out of it, because you can do a lot of little motifs out of, if you don't want to do a whole big mandala, you could do lots of little pieces, especially things that were old class files because they were broken up into stitch-alongs or SALs. And I'm glad that this worked in Pattern Keeper because there was a lot of confetti in those villas. And this is my water garden mandala on 28 count Celestine from Fiber on a Whim. And this has 30,384 stitches in Pattern Keeper. And this one you had to work in dark mode in Pattern Keeper to see the highlights because they were displaying under the symbols. And this is my Pompeii Gardens mandala. I did it on a 28 count Midas from Picture This Plus, which was a little scary to go a little bold with that color, but I think it's a very Tuscan looking color. And you'll notice up here, I left an area open here so it looks like it's open. It's got the fabric showing through, and you'll see that there. This is a 20.6 by 20.6 wide, and it's got 67,677 stitches in Pattern Keeper. And this was pretty much a full coverage except around the edges. The special instructions were a little iffy on these. I had to, by process of elimination, figure out where she was saying to do certain things. So I created a spreadsheet so I knew where I was doing it all 4 different sides and I didn't miss anything. And also I could kind of narrow down, okay, well I did this stitch over there, so then this has got to be that stitch. Because there was a reference of an amphora. I had no idea what it was. It's that thing in the window there with the where I didn't stitch and the fabric shows. Wouldn't have thought to call that an amphora because I think of it as like containers for olive oil or things like that, not flower planters. And the middle is very nicely beaded, almost completely beaded, that whole square in the center there. Little goldfish. And here's the still shot, and this actually looks a little brighter. I think maybe the video is more true to color because it's bright, but it's not quite that bright. And then here's my little Tuscany, and I did it on the same color. And so it's going to be a little companion piece. You can see the size difference. This one's only, I think, 8.5 by 8.5 inches. And this is Italian Street Cats and a Dog 2. It's only 72 by 36 stitch count. and it ends up being about 5.1 by 2.6 inches on a 28 count antique white linen. And I couldn't find a version of this stitched anywhere online, and so Dawn TCB goaded me into doing it, and I've submitted it to the gallery, so I don't think it's out there yet. There are 6 cats, 1 dog, and 2 mice over 1 on this piece. This is my beaded peacock tile. I did it on a 28 count white opalescent linen from Oak Crown Studios. It doesn't look very white, but it's really a bright snowy white. It's about 9.25 by 9.25 inches square, and it's got 5506 stitches in Pattern Keeper. It's got more beads than it has stitches, and Pattern Keeper just tracks the stitches. And here in the photo you can see a little bit brighter white on it. And I did do a tutorial video a few months ago about how to bead a chatelaine, and I used this particular one as an example to decide which way you want to orient your beads, horizontally or vertically or diagonally. And I talked about what I used to attach my beads, and I showed different kinds of beads, and I demoed how I apply my beads, so there's all kinds of information over there about beading a chatelaine if that's a concern of yours. So a while back I did a video on how to use Pattern Keeper for chatelaines, and then I also wrote up this companion piece, and it is housed out on the chatelaine.de website under their resources, so you can get it for free out there. And it covers how to load a chatelaine, tips and troubleshooting for actually stitching using Pattern Keeper with chatelaines, because there are different quirks. You got to remember that chatelaines were designed, several decades ago on now obsolete software. So the fact that it works at all ever is pretty amazing. And I was so happy to be able to get things in there when it was the common misperception that it was totally incompatible. I wanted to share that information with the community that I've enjoyed so much. So I shared this on the brag table so others can be aware of it. It's got step-by-step procedures and screenshots to walk you through the process. It doesn't work on every chart, but I've got about a 75% success rate. I would like to hear from you in comments if you've gotten one in and what chart that is, because I would like to compile a list of them. And if you haven't gotten one in, I would also like to know that as well. And this is Tuscany Town Mandala. This was done by me on 28 count pages, 3 stitches, pages and stitches, linen from Oak Crown Studios. And I also put on the brag table a document that I did. I made some changes to Tuscany Town. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute here, but if anybody wanted the instructions, and if you want the instructions, I've got information on how to go about and get that. One thing I wish I would have done differently, you see those flowers around the corner? The color it called for had browns in it. It was real variegated, and I didn't like the browns, so I subbed in some pink and yellow variegated. And then a day later I saw a picture of Tuscany with poppies, and I should have put black beads in the middle, red poppies, and didn't do it. So I wasn't taking out all those 72 Jessicas. This has 71,171 stitches or thereabouts. I put it in a Pattern Keeper, but the black and white chart is missing a column down the center of the whole chart. The colored chart has it, but the black and white one doesn't. So if you're thinking about doing this one, that's important information to know if you're looking at the black and white chart. And it ends up being 23.4 inches by 23.4 inches on 28 count. And these are the towns I modified. I added 3 buildings to near the Dome of Florence. I replaced the entire town of San Gimignano with the town of Lucca because we didn't go to the other town. We went to Lucca. I didn't make any changes to Pisa. And then on Siena, I just added the piazza out in front of the buildings. And here is the document. And you can see I've got a picture of what it looks like. Here's the key with all the threads. This is a picture of my version and all the different things that I changed in comparisons against the actual buildings. Here's the chart for Florence. I've got the shape around there that are the things I've added. Here is Lucca, and then this is a chart for that. This is Siena and the chart for Siena. And then finally I've got instructions. I did this on Stitch Fiddle. You can make your own copy, and it's free software, so you can make your own modifications. You can build your own town if you want to. And I put a QR code up here. If you want to shoot that, you can get access to it that way too. And it's free. Eventually I'm going to put it out on the Chatelaine Support Facebook group in the files section. And I just figured as long as I was doing it, I may as well document it and share it with other people. What kind of got me started on making changes was Florence, because it just kind of looked like compared to the other sides, that the Duomo was kind of just out there on its own, and there was a lot of negative space around it. And Florence is this crowded little area because you can't even get back far enough to take a picture sometimes of the whole dome and the bell tower. So it kind of felt like putting a bunch of stuff in there was appropriate. And once I did that, I thought, well, I really would like to replace the town that we didn't go to with one that had more significance to me. And cross-stitching, buildings are about the easiest thing you can do because they're right angles. So if you're going to start out with designing something, give buildings a try. And personalization, sometimes people are really uncomfortable with that on chatelaines in particular because they kind of are works of art, and who do you think you are? But to me, it was important for me to change things because I wanted it to represent the places and the things that I saw in Tuscany. And actually, a lot of people came up to me and said that they wanted instructions because Liz had told me that Tuscany was the last trip that she took with her mother, so it was important for her to make it hers. Somebody else came up and said, I'm named for the patron saint of Siena, which is Catherine, and so she was interested in the changes. So it was really gratifying to have people be interested in that. And I made some pillows for some folks at the retreat as little gifts and put Chatelaine Weekend 2 and 2026 Queen City Stitch Retreat around the side. And I made them out of the corner of Tuscany Town. And so I used different color fabrics. Some I did the fill like it is. Some I unfilled it because it took a lot less time to do and I could do more of them. And so there's a lot of little motifs you can do like that out of chatelaines. And then I put a little shiny fabric on the back. And this is my whip of Marie Antoinette mandala. This is on a 32 count black. I think it's Jovelin. But there is a little over one in the middle. That light blue you'll see there is some over one. And it's 321 stitches by 321. It is an old class file. It's broken up into sections, so it's hard for me to get a count in Pattern Keeper. I did have to change out, because I'm doing it on black, I had to change out the outline of the fan, and I'm using a metallic 5318. It's a pearl metallic from DMC. And if you're interested in just hanging out with people that like to talk about chatelaines once a month, there is a chatelaine Zoom that anybody can join. You just have to contact Amy, who is the facilitator. She will add you to the list, send you an invite, and we just hang out for a couple hours on Zoom. I'll add the contact information below. And I intentionally juxtaposed this with the piece that I did. This one was done by Adina at table 6. This is the middle of Marie Antoinette mandala on a 25 count even weave. And the choice of red compared to the choice of black and just doing the middle, you'd never know that it's the same design. I had to look at the tag to realize it was a design that I was doing. It's a beautiful choice, beautiful framing. Love the color with the red. There's a lot of beads that will be filled in there on mine, so you can't really see that yet, but gorgeous. This is Venice Mandala. I did this on a 28 count Jovelin, and I had it almost done last year at the retreat, but I had run out of beads, so I had to request more, and ECC sent me some more, and so I was able to finish this up, and it is all beaded and out on the brag table as a finish this year. It was those gold beads you see kind of around in the little curly Q swirls, spirals, and they're 24 karat gold, and they give them to you by weight, and I think that's what threw off the number of beads that I got. And while you're watching this, I'll just talk about a few other things that happen at the Queen City Stitch Retreat. There's a raffle. We'll put out some information on the Facebook group about all of the wonderful things that were on the raffle table that people could buy tickets for to support a local animal rescue. And you got a goodie bag and a Notions pouch that had a lot of like scissors and tacky bob and a bunch of other fun things, and a big mug, and also some more raffle tickets that you could use. And if you want to see what was in that bag, Susan who is criminally creative. Her recent Flosstube just did a recap of the retreat, and she showed everything that was in the bag, and she talked about her experience at the retreat. So Allie from our team was very busy collecting money from people for more raffle tickets because we earned over $3,320 for the Charlotte Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control. Because in addition to being very, very smart, it seems like cross-stitchers are also big animal lovers and also very generous. And a couple of massage therapists came in, so you could buy a chair massage for 20 minutes. And not only that, but they also, one of the massage therapists came in and did an excellent presentation on stretching exercises and ways to keep you stitching as long as you possibly can. And we have that on tape, so we will also put that up. So look for that because it was an excellent presentation. And there's games where we play trivia and you can win fabulous prizes. And there was a specialty stitch demo, and there was a demonstration on how to lace your projects to prepare them for framing. And I will talk more about that a little later on. And there is a fabric booth. Amy has Oak Crown Studios, and she has just a ton of fabric. And I often say that going to a retreat, one of the best values is being able to go and look at fabric and touch it and see it before you buy it. Because if you've ever bought things online and been disappointed and paid shipping fees, having a fabric booth practically will pay for your admission at the retreat. Because if you add up all of the costs that you've thrown away on things that you got and didn't like, being able to buy things that you know you will use is a real plus. And because she's a chatelaine stitcher, she offers cuts that chatelaines will fit on. And she also, at the last day, will cut down larger pieces. So if you wanted to buy a smaller piece, if she had a full yard, she'd cut that down, and you could buy that. Now this is a bonus chart that comes with the Venice Mandala, and it's just a cute little thing. You can decide to put whatever you want in the windows. And I did it on a 14 count silver dusted Charles Craft DMC Ada. It's really very, very shiny. You can't really pick up the shine, and it's almost a silvery grayish color. And so Martina left the windows blank, and you could put whatever you want in there. Use the ones from the mandala design, or I designed the female carnival reveler and used the male reveler that I found and reversed him. And then I found some square faceted glass beads that reminded me of Venetian glass that I put in the corners and the sides and below the window. I guess you can see the shine okay, it's just that it looks like oatmeal rather than the silver it really looks like in person. And I was playing around with window inserts for Venice and designed a few. And I'm going to do an etui box with 4 panels on the side of the windows. So I designed some Venetian glass lanterns, gondola, Doge's Palace, and Piazza San Marco clock tower. And this is my very first chatelaine I ever stitched. This is Mini Mystery Mandala 03, and I did it on 16 count white Aida. And yes, you can do some chatelaines on Aida if you don't have to pierce the middle of the square like on Algerian eyelets maybe. It's a little easier to do. And it didn't load into Pattern Keeper, but I wasn't using Pattern Keeper at the time. And Alma, who's on our team, her husband stitches some, and this is going to be his very first chatelaine, and he's going to do it on Aida. And this is my Gardens of London. It's on a 28 count white Joblin, the same as I put Venice on. And you see in the middle there, I've got the arrow pointing down. I've got this facing upside down on the table. But people, you might wonder why they put those arrows in. And so you can see which way is up. You want your stitches all to be going the same way. And eventually you take those stitches out. And there's always a big bead typically that goes right in the middle that covers that up. And as they get bigger and bigger, you lose sight sometimes of that arrow. So I also put multiple needle minders across the top. And so even if I move one, I can always see which direction is up. I did make a little modification to the hat on the guardsman there. It wasn't a very tall hat, and he had a lot of room in that guards booth. So I took Whisper, Black Whisper, and did about 6 satin stitches and made it taller. I could have made it even a little bigger than that. And then up here we have the British Museum. We've got some more of these summer fruits. This is cherries. This was done on Atomic Ranch Pistachio by Dawn, who is Dawn TCB, on table 20. And we know that in the Chatelaine community, there's probably a ton of things that could have been on this brag table that just don't fit into suitcases. So this is just a small sampling of what the people in that room have probably done. And this one is Kathy's Violets. This was made into a biscornu on 28 count Bayou from Crossed Wing Collection by Dawn, TCB. And you know it's Dawn's because, like I mentioned, she runs the fob factory, and she's got some shiny pin that's attached in there that poked in that biscornu. And there's even a little violet on the back here, and you can see the button, and the edges are sewn together, it looks like, with fancy metallics. I'm going to start out here by showing you what this sea quilt starfish, it's one element out of many on this design, looks like, and then I will show you what Dawn did to convert it. She did this on a 28 count stonewashed from BeStitchMe, and she used cottage garden threads. And Dawn is an incredibly prolific chatelaine stitcher. She is currently on her 30th chatelaine start, and she's got 23 finishes under her belt. And she also works for Chatelaine, so she really likes chatelaines. And who can blame her? And the really amazing thing is she's only been stitching chatelaines for about 4 years. Fortunately, she drives to the retreat, so we can see some of her bigger pieces. For instance, this is her Frosty Knot Garden, and this was done on a 32 count Artemis Lugana by Atomic Ranch. And one of the things that was announced at the retreat was that we are going to have a 2027 Chatelaine Stitch Along that will start January 1st, and because it's the 30th anniversary of Chatelaine, there is an anniversary sampler that is going to be chosen for the design to do. And it's OCF or ONL 017 if you're looking for it, because there's a few anniversary samplers. But it's got a castle and a swan and a Chatelaine logo woman with the pointy cone hat. And it did originally come with a pewter charm that was the Chatelaine logo that was no longer available, but Dawn brought it back through the fob factory with the permission of Chatelaine, and I will put the link down below where you can purchase that. And I'll give you some more details about the SAL throughout the rest of the video here, and I'll show you some pictures of it. And I'll talk about DMC conversions, which Dawn also did, and fabric choices and all that kind of stuff. And this is Misty Morning Vineyard by Cheryl Grissett. She did this on a 36 count fabric. She's not exactly sure what it is anymore because it took her a while to finish this one. She started it in 2018 and finished it in 2026. And speaking of charms, this one also came with a pewter charm of a peacock. And you'll see it coming up here in a second. And she had this charm, and that one was tricky to get in. The beads she managed to do okay, but getting that charm centered in there was a bit of work. She also said that the peacocks were done over one, and of course Martina gave you about 5 different options of whether you do it over one or over two. There you go. You can see that pewter charm of that peacock that is unfortunately no longer available for people that want to do that. But you could have stitched the peacocks in gold or with beads, or there's a whole bunch of options. And Cheryl was actually fortunate enough to take some classes with Martina Rosenberg. I believe that, if I remember the story right, I think her husband was stationed in Germany, and so she was able to go. Well, the next one I'll show you here is a class that I know that she took in person with her, and we'll take a look at that in a second. And just back to SALs for a second here. When they choose the SAL, they try to be as inclusive as possible. So they're looking for things that are not a real high skill level so that as many people can join as possible, things that are budget friendly, so as economical as possible. This anniversary sale that we're doing this year, if you use the DMCs, it's about as economical as you can get for doing a chatelaine. So they really want to get as many people in stitching and feeling comfortable, and if they do one chatelaine, they'll do another. And as I was filming this piece, I set my camera down on the brag table and got kind of this sideways view of it. And I thought I'd throw it in here because sometimes you get a different perspective by looking at it sideways, so I thought I'd just keep it in. And this is the Biederman Pouch Silk Ribbon Embroidery Workshop 2004 that Cheryl took the class with Martina on, and she was in Duisburg, Germany. And a Biederman period or chatelaine silk embroidery pouch refers to a small, highly decorative 19th or 20th, early 20th century purses or sewing bags that featured fine silk needlework, and you'd carry your thimbles or your notions in it. And it was often meant to hang from a belt chatelaine. That's where the term comes from, chatelaine. And Biedermeier is a Central European cultural, artistic, and interior design style from the period between 1815 and 1848, defined by domestic comfort, clean, functional lines, and simplicity. It flourished during a time of strict political censorship, causing the growing middle class to turn inward and focus on home life and private security. It was named after a satirical fictional cartoon character later called Gottlieb Biedermeier, who represented the cozy, unpretentious, and conventional bourgeois lifestyle. Next we have Kathy's Violets. We saw this earlier that Dawn did, and this one was done by Paige Fowler at Table 20. Paige and Dawn come together to the retreat, so they drive together. So that's why I've got some similar things that they've done together. And here we've got Butterfly Lace Mandala, or Mandala. I always say Mandala, but I guess you can say it either way. It's on 28 count opalescent blush Lugana from Oak Crown Studios, and this was again done by Dawn, and this was her 24th chatelaine start and her 20th finish. And it sort of brought her to her knees, and she had to start working on some other things for a while because she was non-stop chatelaine for a while. She says the pattern says it's the second sparkliest chatelaine, although she wasn't sure what the most sparkliest was. And she added some additional butterfly crystals and cubes to push it over the edge to become the most sparkliest if you're keeping track. It's got lots of overwon butterflies, and um, even though it's through glass, you can still see the sparkle on it. And it's on a blush, which is a pink, and it almost looks white. Very, very subtle pink. And here we're going to start to see some of these butterflies show up as I get towards the inner perimeter. There we go. And these are, like I said, these are all over one, and you can see how much work that would be. I mean, over one is not relaxing to me. It's not a hobby anymore. So I've been very lucky. The chatelaines I've chosen it, and just sheer dumb luck, have not had a lot of over one, because it's not putting them in that bothers me so much. It's the taking them out when you make a mistake that I really don't enjoy. So as beautiful as this one is, I don't see this in my immediate future as stitching it. And the one I think I've heard that's got the kind of the biggest section of over one is Polar Mandala, I think it is. And I think there is a over two option, but you know, it always looks great with the over one. And you really don't have any way, just other than hearing from somebody else, that there's over one stitching in it. So if you have questions, another great resource is the Chatelaine Support Facebook group. And, you know, it's a great place to see fabric choices that people have made, to ask questions. If you click in the photo section, you can see all the pictures that people have posted. You can search for a particular design, and it's just a really, really fabulous resource. And every weekend they do give us an update. So on Friday, you post what you're going to be working on for the weekend, and then on Sunday you post again what progress you've made. So it's kind of a mini stitch along. mean, everybody's working on their own design. And over one would also be one of the things that would preclude you from using an Ada because you really wouldn't be able to do an over one. Like I said, she sometimes gives you alternate designs to do over two, but if you had your heart set on doing it over one and you're only going to do it on Ada, that's probably not going to work out very well. And this is another of the summer fruits. This is the pear by Paige Fowler, and she did this on mermaid firewood from Dames of the Needle fabric, and got the stunning gold frame on it. Very nice job on the framing. And if you look at these specialty stitches that are on here, it really is a master class of all the specialty stitches that Martina used, with the exception of maybe Jessica's. But you've got your rice, you've got your eyelets, you've got your Rhodes stitches. They're all there. Plus you got some diamond eyelets around the border. And I flipped it over and took a look at the back, and she did a really nice lacing job. And this seems as good a time as any to show you all the people that participated in the Summer Fruit SAL. And these are all the people that had new starts at the retreat. And here is another framed piece from Paige. This is Mini Mystery Mandala '05, and she did this on a Gothic mauve from Fiber on a Whim. And one thing I really like that she did is leave a lot of the fabric around the edge. Instead of using a mat, these fabrics are so beautiful, and if you cover up most of it with stitching, you never get to see the gorgeous fabrics. And that's not something just to even consider before you frame your piece. It's something to consider before you even start your piece, because you want to make sure that you leave enough of a margin to be able to do that. And filming through glass is always a tricky challenge, so pardon the reflections, especially those huge overhead giant, what looks like ring lights. They're not actually ring lights, they're just the overhead lights in that ballroom. And this is blue Moroccan lace. Actually, it's purple Moroccan lace because Dawn did a color conversion for it. And if you're interested in that, it is on the Chatelaine Support Facebook group, and it is in the files section there. And she did this on a 32 count Artemis Lugana by Atomic Ranch. And somebody else mentioned that there was a blue Moroccan lace, the blue on a dark blue fabric, similar to the same tone on tone that she did on this, but I never saw it. It came and it went apparently, so if somebody has pictures of it, I'd love to see it. But she loved doing this so much that she is actually thinking about doing it another color, like a red or a lime green. And it only took her 76 days to do this, so she is just a machine when she stitches these chatelaines. And it's so fun to see these things in person because, especially if you've stitched this piece or are thinking about stitching it, is you can learn so much about the placement of the beads, which way did they orient the beads? Did they, put them all the same direction? Did they do it based on, whether it was in the corners, or did they switch it from side to side, from horizontal to vertical? So really useful information about being able to go and see these things in person. And here we have a series of three. It's called Mini Mandala 2, and these were done by Liz Giovannini, and she did two of the three. And Liz was at table 2, and she was working on Medieval Town Mandala. I'll show you it in the whips at the end here, but it was just beautiful. The scroll work and the gold around the perimeter on the inside. I've seen that before and thought, oh yeah, it'd be nice to do it. I saw it in person. Gorgeous. So here is the paper pattern of the set of three that are mini mandalas 2. That was the one on the lower right, and then the one on the lower left she did here. And I know it's confusing because there's mini mandalas, and there's mini mandala gardens and mini mystery mandalas. This set is mini mandala 2 and the number is OCF-Chat-038 if you're looking for it. You can see them both together in matching frames. And I know it's hard to get a sense of scale with these things kind of out of context, but these, being minis, they're only 81 by 81 stitch count, so that gives you an idea of the size. And here we have another mini mandala gardens 1 through 3 that she did, and this is OCF-Chat023, and this is the second of the 3 that she did. And the Chatelaine.de website does let you search by size. They have size small and mini, a size midi, size big and maxi, and then size really big. So that might help you narrow down just what you're willing to tackle. And this is Embroidered Elegance too. It's a whip by Angela, who is Pretty Little X's and Instagram, and she was at table 10. This was done on Crazy Hamster. They don't name their fabric. This is Frosty Knot Garden. This was done on Opalescent White by Lisa Conti, and Lisa was at table 23. And she was kind of regretting her fabric choice for this one, but I think it's really lovely. It's got the sparkle on it. There's a lot of dark colors. This is so dense, it's almost a full coverage. So I think she chose very wisely on this one. I think this is very beautiful because the white opalescent makes it look very snowy and wintry and icy. And I also talked a second ago about how you can search on the Chatelaine.de website for size, but you can also search by low cost, low time. So if you're looking for something to do quickly, that would be, this one's a bigger one. This would not fall into that category, but you can do that. And they also let you search by category, so whether it's gardens or landscapes or Christmas, winter, a whole variety of different categories that you can search. And this is Peacock Blackwork on Black Even Weave done by Liz Hussey, and on Instagram she is Philum and Flora. And I've never seen this one stitched before. And it's charted as one peacock. She had the genius idea of flipping and mirroring the peacocks. And so she's going to be putting some wording in between, like the name of the retreat or something like that. And so I really hope she submits it to the Chatelaine Gallery so other people can see it stitched. And she couldn't get the Petite Treasure Braid gold to lay flat, so she decided to use a strand of variegated peacock colored floss. And I think that's a really brilliant compromise. And Liz is really new to this community. She's only been involved with Chatelaines for a couple of months, and I think she's fairly new to cross-stitching. But I've gotten to know her pretty well just on Instagram and chatting and stuff. And she's a lovely person. She gave me this beautiful card and 12 Days of Christmas Stockings by Annie Belcher chart. Just very, very sweet. And she's all in on Pattern Keeper. She's going after these things and figuring out how to load them up, and so very impressive. Now this next one is a horror story with a happy ending. This is Octopus Treasure Cave, and this was done by Angela, who is Pretty Little X's on Instagram. And I'm going to put together a separate video about this because this was salvaged at the retreat, and she had taken it to a framer, had done her research to ask the questions about, do you know how to frame needlework, and was given assurances. And it came back and it was visibly crooked. I mean, visibly crooked. And not only that, is he put a ton of staples in it, and just the worst thing you can imagine as a needleworker. And she took it back, and they blamed her for not using enough margin, and her husband went and talked to them, but they were just unapologetic. And as you can imagine, she was just sick about it. She didn't want to hang it on her wall, but Maggie and Amy convinced her to bring it to the retreat so they could take a look at it, and they fixed it. You can see here that Katie Ten Eyck went through and relaced the whole project. They had to cut it down, and to be able to do that, it was apparently mounted on some strange construction board, so they had to get materials door dashed from Michael's. And you can see just how out of alignment. You can see where the row of staples were, and especially going down the side, you can see how much of a difference it is between the top and the bottom from where the staple line is. So she found another framer that's willing to cut down the frame that she had because they had to make it smaller in size, and they're willing to cut down the glass in the frame to be able to pop this into it. feel like I should hold a flashlight under my chin when I tell this story because there was a audible gasp in the room when Maggie related the story to everybody. And that's the part you need to watch, a separate video that I'll put out on it. Because Maggie and Amy were very eloquent when they talked about this community and what we do for each other. And it'll make you cry. You gotta watch it. So let's take one more look at that octopus. She even put a few extra pearls around him. And she did this on a 32 count Joblin Veil of the Night by Fiberlicious Yummy Fibers. And this is Desert Night Tent. This was done on a 28 count Apricot Dream Jazlyn, Jazlyn, which is a Swigert even weave from Country Stitch Fabrics out of New Zealand. And this is the finished version. We saw a whip earlier, but this one was done by Kay, who is Extreme Mom 24. She was at table 24. And she said it stitched up really fast. It only took her 6 months. Your mileage may vary. Kay was kind enough to offer me her paper copy, but since I use electronic versions, I encouraged her to pass it along to somebody else so that there are more of these in the world because this is just a beautiful thing. So thank you, Kay. And I'm sorry, I suggest that you be banned from all future retreats for stitching things so beautiful that I need to immediately then buy to stitch. Attendees were conveniently given a 10% discount to use during the weekend, and so it was very helpful to be able to see things on the brag table and very dangerous to see things on the brag table like this. So we want to thank Ella, who is Martina's daughter, for offering that discount from Chatelaine Designs. And I'll talk a little bit about paper copies. You can buy paper copies at places like 123 Stitch, or you can buy it from European Cross Stitch that kits it up. But Chatelaine.de sells the PDF. And some people, are paper copy all the way. But the PDF, you can actually make it bigger. Obviously, you can expand your things. You can take pictures of your paper copy and make those magnified as well. But the PDF is easier to see. So sometimes people buy the paper copy and then they're disappointed that they have to go and buy the PDF to be able to see it better. So it's kind of your preference, but just want to let you know that there's two different versions out there of ways that you can get the charts, and whatever your preference is, you want to make sure that you consider those. And Chatelaine.de website has all of the available designs, whereas they don't kit everything up at European Cross Stitch Company, and 123 Stitch has a subset of all of the designs. So if you can't find the one you're looking for, go look at Chatelaine.de. So what did I buy with my discount? In addition to this, the Anniversary SAL that I'm going to be participating in, Advent Snowflake, which I saw last year on the brag table, and was really inexpensive and beautiful, Vienna Mandala, and Chris Moose, and Dawn and I are talking about doing stockings out of Chatelaine's Christmas stockings. She's got Cheerful Deer, I got Chris Moose, and I bet she finishes hers first. It may already be done. I haven't checked Instagram today. And this is Mini Mystery Mandala 03 on 16 count Platinum Ada by Elizabeth Broniak, and she made it into this fabulous pillow with black fringe. And if I could finish like this, I'd make all my stuff into pillows. And I'll throw a few more pieces of information about the retreat in. One of the perks is if you don't have a local needlework store near you, there is a shop called the Stitchin' Kitten, no G on the end of Stitchin'. They are located in Irma, South Carolina, which is just about an hour and a half away from the retreat in Charlotte, and they are near Columbia. And actually somebody at the retreat said that they did what I don't remember suggesting on one of my Flosstubes, is they flew into Columbia, stopped at Stitchin' Kitten, and then drove to Charlotte from there. So that's a tip for you if you want to get there. But they open for us on Sunday, so people can go down there after the retreat and shop. They just attendees only, so that's very kind of them to do that. And they also offer a discount to us, and you could use it either online or in person. If you wanted to buy from them online, they offer free standard shipping on orders over $75 or more. I'll put a link to their website down below. And this is Summer Fruits. This is the cherry, and this was done by Sadie, and she is sadie.raq.gm on Instagram, and she is sa.rita91 on Flosstube, and she recently did a Flosstube with a recap of the retreat, so check her out. And look at the shading under those things in specialty stitches. You know, every time I do one of these videos, I see something that I didn't notice in person. She did this on a 28 count frieze linen from Atomic Ranch, that same alternately spelled fabric that we saw Paige do one of her pieces on. And she framed it in this lovely, appropriately cherry red frame. And this one was done by Angela of Octopus Framing Nightmare fame. And she did this on Plum Hallowed from Fiberlicious Yummy Fibers. And I believe she did a conversion too to accommodate for the darkness of fabric. And even though you've seen a number of these same designs done on this video, they all take on a different look depending on the fabric used. And it's really another one of the great benefits of going to a retreat and seeing them in person. And so often you see something and think, I never in a million years would have thought to use that fabric, and it's obviously the right choice. And I'm going to show you the tag because it was attached to the fabric. So this is a 28 count Soft Sky Jaslyn Zweigart even weave from Country Stitch Fabrics out of New Zealand. And so it was Kay, we know that from table 14, she likes to use this fabric. And this is Rainforest Lace Mandala. She finished this at the retreat last year. And I know that this inspired at least 2 people to get this chart with their discount code. Alli, Z, and Sadie, both who had Flosstubes, talked about this, and so you might want to go check out those Flosstubes. One hasn't started, and they are both doing it on different fabrics. And there are different animals in each of the corners of this design, and there is an alternate monkey that you can do. I know that Kay didn't put it in her here, but you can buy it separately. It's like €5 on the chatelaine.de website. So if you're not up to tackling an entire rainforest mandala, you could do just the little monkey. And you know, everyone, it could be included in the design. I'm not positive if it's an alternate choice. Sometimes Martina included extra things in the design, just like with Venice Mandala. It had a Venice bonus chart that I've never seen anybody stitch, but you know, it's kind of like little surprise inside, like little Cracker Jack box. Here's some over one butterflies, so if you're not quite up to the task of doing the whole butterfly lace, you could do this one, although I'm not sure how much other over one is on this, but it looks like these here and there butterflies that are on this are also over one on this piece. And another tip for you when choosing a mandala is look at the design and see how much is the same. If all 4 sides are the same, I tend to avoid those. Although I did just say that I'm buying Vienna Mandala, and what I'm going to do is just stitch the one side, do just a horizontal piece on it. And maybe I'll do the center as a separate piece. So there's other ways you can do things. This one has different things on each side. Yeah, the parrots are the same, but they're all different colors, so that breaks up a little of the monotony. So if you're somebody that gets easily bored, you can still do chatelaine, but just be a little more judicious in your choosing of designs so you find one that has enough variety for you. And a few other tidbits about the retreat. We have merchandise, so if you want to buy sweatshirts or t-shirts or hoodies with the logo on it, with the year on it, there's all kinds of choices if you want to, you know, buy the branded merch. And we have a needle minder exchange, so there's a magnetic board up in the room, and it's kind of like take a penny, leave a penny concept. You know, you can leave yours on there and take another one. Requires no social interaction if you're an introvert, so you don't have to go around from table to table asking if anybody wants to swap needle minders with you. Low impact activity for you. And some other stitchy advice that came up in conversation at the retreat. Sweta, who was at table 2, was having a problem with some dinky dye floss. If you ever handled this stuff, it's all twisted, and then when you untwist it, it becomes this big rat's nest. And so she was looking for ideas to how to avoid this kind of thing. And so we considered maybe swapping it out for a DMC, and Alli had an entire collection of DMC at the retreat, so we went and looked at that and couldn't find anything that worked. And I know Dawn has, and a surprising number of other people, uses a hair straightener, like a curling iron, to straighten out their metallics, and it might also work on the dinky dyes, just don't set it real high. some other ideas were to use a sponge or just wet it first, and that will tend to calm it down a little bit. But at this point, it was just a big tangled ball. And I will finish this story on the other side of this next clip because we have another one to look at. This is Alhambra Gardens mandala, and this was done by Liz Giovannini, Table 2, and it's got this lovely frame and mat on it. And as I mentioned, this was one that I'm thinking of doing. I was originally going to do it on black, and then I thought maybe Gothic or Phantom from Picture This Plus because it's very purpley, and I wanted to pick up those purples. Hopefully it won't get lost in there. And now I'm thinking I might use Dark Belladonna from Garibaldi Needleworks. So when that comes in, I'll do a floss toss and see which one works. I might need to do an extra row of gold or something around the edges of things to keep them from disappearing in there. And looking at this reminds me that I forgot to mention I also bought Seville Alcazar Garden Mandala. That's a really big one, but both the Alcazar Garden in Seville and the Alhambra in Granada both have that Moorish influence, so those will look good together since I have this design to do as well. And I also have Marrakesh Nights, so I'm going to have all of the, between that and the Desert Tent one now, I'm going to have everything Moroccan in my house. Matter of fact, I got curious as to how many travel-themed chatelaines there were, and I went through and counted. There were 101 of them, and I did a video showing all of them, of all the different places in all the world that Martina did designs for. It's very impressive. And they're so detailed and accurate. She really did her research. And for contrast, here is Kay's version of Alhambra. And I also mentioned that you can see different fabrics used, but you can also see different matting and framing choices for the ones that people do bring in framed. So again, very useful to come to a retreat and see these in person. And she didn't bring it this year, but Kay last year brought Moroccan Town Mandala, which is yet another Moroccan influence one. So if you've got plenty to choose from if you're interested in that area of the world. And this one is Royal Tudor Mandala. This is also done by Kay, and she did it on a 28 count Jaslyn Lemon Meringue Zweigart Even Weave from Country Stitch Fabrics. And this is the one that got me last year. I saw this and I couldn't stop looking at it. And so I bought it, and I've discovered that the beads in the crown are discontinued by Swarovski. It actually says it on the ECC website. I didn't catch that. I mentioned it in a video, and Storm Stitches left me a comment saying that she knew about that because she actually read the website, which I didn't. And so we were going back and forth trying to find these things. And there are also some discontinued bugle beads around the inner perimeter that Kay said she chose to not use anyway because she didn't like how they look. And I looked, and you can't really tell that there's even a gap where they should be. It goes around the edge of the center. I think you can sort of, I think they go, oh yeah, right between there and the blue center. And here you can start to see that crown near the top. They've got crystals that are 6 by 8 millimeter oval crystals. Here we go. And there's 2 in the middle and then 1 on either side. And I just had found out about a bead shop that had been in business for 40 years in my town that was going out of business. They didn't have them, didn't know anything about them, and they did a little more research and they found out maybe they're used in the garment industry because they're what they call table crystals because they have flat backs on them. And so I did some more research and found that VenetianBeadShop.com has some on their site. But again, I'm not sure how many because they are discontinued by Swarovski now, and I don't think they're coming back. A little while ago, Swarovski also quit supplying needlework shops, and now they've reversed that decision, so more likely to find them. But I don't think I think they're 5051 is the number. Those aren't probably coming back. And in the midst of doing all this bead research for these crowns, I decided to Google Royal Tudor crown. Apparently it is lost to time because they have misplaced the Royal Tudor crown and discovered that while they don't really know what it looks like, they had a representation of what they think it looks like, and the band across the bottom there with the jewels in it had actually horizontal placement, and some were square and some were round and some were rectangle, or some were squares put on the diagonal. So now I'm looking for all kinds of different shaped beads, and ended up finding some on Etsy that unfortunately didn't have holes in them, so I can't sew them on. But I actually think I prefer them to the ovals because they have fittings on them, almost like, a ring to hold the stone in place. And so I think that actually will look kind of cool. But unfortunately, to attach them, I got to figure out a way to do that. Fortunately, I am married to a guy who is very handy, and he has lots of friends that are handy, and one of those friends does precision work with watches, and he can drill tiny little holes into things. And so he has kindly agreed to drill a bunch of holes in a bunch of little beads so that I can sew them on my Royal Tudor mandala when I start and finish stitching it. So any of you who are interested in doing this, I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but at least it gives you something to go by. If you need other advice as to where I found some of the stuff, just drop me a comment. Although I'm not sure I can get my husband's buddy to drill holes in your little beads. But that brings me to one other probably little known but probably very useful piece of information that is on the Chatelaine.de website. They have a link to crystal replacements for chatelaine designs. So they have recommendations for Preciosa and other manufacturers that sell bicones and other things that you can no longer get from Swarovski. And they also have a link to discontinued and replaced Delica beads, and so it gives you the original number and a new number that's been assigned if you're having trouble finding some of those. So both of those links are under the resources tabs, and you get to those from the main menu, the FAQ contact resources, and then there's a link called resources that has errata lists, material lists, and suppliers. If you click in there, you can find both of those lists. And it's a good idea to check the errata lists for any before you start any chatelaine. And there is one not only on chatelaine.de but also in the Chatelaine gallery. So check them both because they have different information sometimes. And as we take one last look at Royal Tudor, I think it's the black work, the combination of that with the cross stitching, and is what gets me on this one. And I regret not getting a better shot of this one. When I was filming things, I stopped to talk to somebody and got interrupted and forgot where I left off. And so this, I found a still shot at least that I had taken of this. It's not a great one, but this is Hortus venenum. Probably not saying that right. And it is also known as Poison Garden. And this was done by Jessica at Table 19. And I know this is a really popular one. And there's such incredible details in all of the different poison plants that are out there, and these little creepy crawly bugs and all kinds of wonderful little details that are in this one. And there actually is a real poison garden. It is located in Alnwick in the UK, and it's got most of the poisonous plants of the world. And each arch in this one contains a poisonous plant. So there's 12 of them in total, and they have the botanical names backstitched in Latin. That's why it's called Hortus venenum. And then here is a closer look then at the center of this design. And I promised I was going to tell you the rest of the story about Sweda's issue with the uh, misbehaving dinky dies, so here it is. What I do is when I first take them apart, before you take off the label, put your fingers in the loops on either end and untwist it, and then slip an end around some object like the opposite ends of your Q-snap, and unwind the floss onto a bobbin. I like to use Bobby's brand. It's a silicone bobbin, and they snap shut. Because if you just put it on a floss drop, it's going to coil back up into a snarled mess. And I put all my Chatelaine specialty flosses on these bobbins, and I store them in Flossway bags along with a label. And I also put a strand on the label, so, like if I was using it as a floss drop, just so I can tell what color it is if the spool gets separated from the label. You might have seen these bobbins on Flosstube with people who are doing full coverage, and if they're parking because they're doing a lot of confetti and they just do a single stitch and they don't want to end the thread, so they just leave the threads hanging down, and they wrap them around on one of these things and snap it shut so it kind of holds them in place. So if you've got any other ideas for ways to handle this stuff and you want to share them with Sweta, her Instagram is StabbyMcStabFace. And here we have a whip that was done by Jessica. This is the Sparkling Peacock Mandala. She did this on a 28 count Demoiselle from Picture This Plus. And she was at table 19. And her Instagram is Outrageous. I'm going to spell that one for you. Outraejss. And she was the one that also did the Poison Garden. And I think this is one of the most beautiful centers in all the mandalas. It really is gorgeous. I can say the same thing for Poison Garden. Beautiful. And this whip is Mushroom and Fern. It was done on a 32 count Wild Bouquet from BeStitchMe, I believe. And this was done by Hannah Fancher. Her Instagram is Dyad's Midnight Needle. And she was at table 19 because I think she is the daughter of Jessica, who had done the previous two that we just looked at. And I'm surprised that we didn't see more Mushroom and Fern, because I know that a lot of people stitch this one. This is very popular, but this was the only one on the table. And this is Versailles. This was Mystery 20 XX when it first came out, because it was issued as a SAL in different pieces. And this was done on a 32 count antique white linen by Elena. And she is stitching Farmer, and that was Farmer with a PH because she is a pharmacist. And she is on Instagram and she's on Flosstube. And she's done a number of chatelaines. This one is beautiful. And I mentioned this last year too, that I could look at this all day long, and I thoroughly intended to stitch it till I saw it in person. But now I've got mad respect for Elena for putting up with these really long brown palaces on this one. But there's so many beautiful details. And I remember being struck last year of the fountains that are on here, and they capture the flowing movement of water with the crystals. And there's several different fountains on this one. They're just gorgeous. And she placed those crystals right in that garland there. The way they catch the light, it's just, yeah, right there, those whitish ones. Just beautiful how that shows up. And you've got, all the gardens of Versailles and the intertwined initials of Marie Antoinette and Louis the 16th. Just amazing stuff. And as long as we're looking at some European locations, this reminds me that another thing that's on the resources page of the Chatelaine.de website is a link to international chatelaine suppliers. So if you aren't in the US, this has a list of several different countries and where you can get different components, whether it's Glorianas or MPIs or Dinky Dyes or Karen Water Lilies, all of the normal things that are usually in chatelaine kits. And the only other chatelaine retreat that I am aware of is there's one that's held almost the same time in July in Crewe in England, which is in Cheshire. And we were honored to have a couple of the people come last year to the US retreat that are responsible for hosting that retreat. So it was a lot of fun to see Charlotte and Nicola at our retreat last year. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it again this year because theirs was going on at the same time. Charlotte is a very prolific chatelaine stitcher, and she is stitching with the kids around on Instagram, and she has a Flosstube. They do have a private Facebook group that anybody can join. It's called UK Chatelaine Retreats, and they do things like challenges where it's 100 days of chatelaine, so anybody can just post once a week their plans and their progress, and it's a lot of fun to see what everybody else is stitching. And this is Rhodes Workshop number 3 on 28 count by Rosemary Brightus. On Instagram, she is at Rosemary Hughes Brightus, Brytus, and Three Sisters, Three Stitchers Flosstube. She was at table 17. And this one's called Winter Guests in a Snowy World. And this one was stitched by Dawn. I've got another one stitched by somebody else that will follow immediately after it, this one. But this is on a 28 count. It's called A Little Sassy Lugana by BeStitchMe. I think there's a version you can opt to have the squirrels not be in it, because apparently people have opinions about squirrels. But she put the squirrels, she of course modified the squirrels because she's Dawn, and changed the color from brown to gray, and Alli and Paige helped with that. And apparently she even tried Whisper, because it seems like the right thing to put on a squirrel's tail, but that didn't work out so well either, so that came back out. And as you would expect, she added some more crystals because the snow just wasn't shiny enough. And she really loved doing this one. She thinks everybody should do it because it's fast. It's basically all DMC. You can do over one if you want or not, and then you'll have a chatelaine done. And there are 2 squirrels and 19 birds on this particular thing. You'd have to kind of look for them. It doesn't look like there's 19 in there. And here's another framed version of this same piece. This one was done by Adina on 25 count even weave. She was at table 6. And she's got the brown squirrels on this one. Apparently there are 17 shades of brown that go into each one of those squirrels. And again, you can do one squirrel, you can do 2 squirrels. Sort of sounds like a choose your own adventure chatelaine. This was a finish at the retreat. She got to ring the bell, and I think this was Nancy's. She was at the same table as me. Unfortunately, I did not sit at that table very often. I was running around taking pictures and talking to people, and so I apologized for not spending more time with those folks. But yeah, this is a beautiful one done on black. And by now you know that this is the Summer Fruits Cherry that was part of the retreat SAL. And I promised you information about the 2027 SAL, and here it is. You don't have to come to the retreat. Anybody can join this SAL, and it's celebrating the 30th anniversary of Chatelaine. Here's the picture of what it looks like, and remember this is OCF-ONL 017. There's a few different anniversary designs out there, and Martina designed this in 2002 to celebrate her 5th year in business. And I will put a link down below for it, and what you have to do is purchase the design from chatelaine.de and then send a receipt or email a screenshot to kitschywips@gmail.com, and then you will be admitted into the private Facebook group for the SAL. As far as kitting it up, you can purchase the kit from ECC, European Cross Stitch Company. They are a U.S. company, even though it says European in the name. They sell European designs and kits. It calls for 1 skein of Karen Water Lilies, 2 cards of Rainbow Gallery Petite Treasured Braid, and then you can buy those separately. It also calls for 14 skeins of MPI threads, and Dawn has done a conversion of those threads to DMC, and we'll show you what those look like so you can compare and decide if you want to save some money. You could do the DMC, and I think nobody will probably even know. And then it also has a bead pack that you can buy, so any of those components can be mixed and matched for what you need. And the chatelaine.de site also always has material lists available, so before you even buy the chart, you can look and see what DMCs are required, what specialty flosses and beads and all of that information and the quantities that are needed is available for you. And in addition, Oak Crown Studio has chosen 3 fabric colors that Amy thinks that will suit this pattern. And so if you order any of these 3 specific colors by November 1st, she'll make sure to get it to you by the start date. On the left is Toasted Coconut, and this is about the equivalent of a DMC 3866 combined with 000 or Blanc. In the middle we have Marjorie Gertrude 1907, and that is a DMC equivalent of 3047. And then on the right is Blush. This is the equivalent of DMC 23, and it's a soft blush pink with patches of a more yellow tone possible. And of course, you're welcome to stitch on whatever fabric you like. The size is 183 by 245 stitches, and they do recommend 14 or 28 count. And as I mentioned before, Ella of Chatelaine has given permission to update and reprint the Chatelaine charm that was previously part of the design. And Dawn will be selling them exclusively through her Etsy shop, Bob Factory, and there will be a link below. They are $22.50 plus shipping, and there is a limited quantity of them, and they are sterling silver. And the pattern has also been updated with a beautiful letter written by Ella herself about this major milestone. The pattern doesn't include the ribbon flower, but you're welcome to add it and make it your own. And as you can see, this chart really lends itself to personalization. You know, you could put whatever you want. You could put a quote or something down below. You could, shorten the area and not do the section below. You could put your name or initials or whatever you want to do. You could, do it as a sampler of some sort and put the alphabet in there. So sky's the limit. And because this is a OCF, an old class file, it already is broken up into pieces. So you can work at your own pace, or you can wait for guidance. We hope that you join us at the Chatelaine 30th Anniversary Sale that starts January 1st, 2027 and runs through the end of the year. And next I've got a bunch of whips that didn't quite make it to the table. Sometimes I just went around the room and took pictures. If I know what they are, I will tell you. I do know that this one is a whip of Cordoba patios that Amy is working on, and it is on Stone's Throw, I assume by Oak Crown Studios. This is Seasons of a Brook. This one is being worked on by Dawn, and she started this one at the retreat. This shows a brook in winter, spring, summer, fall, and you don't see it very often, and I don't know that there's one that's really on the gallery, so I think she's shooting to get that on there. And this is the medieval town mandala that Liz, I mentioned, was working on, and just pretty. Look at that gold scroll work. It's gorgeous. And this is the start of Paris Mandala by Amy, and she is doing this on fabric that she got from Sajou in Paris. And this is Oriental Harem Garden by Amy. And I bet you didn't even know Chatelaine has bird designs. This is an owl that was being worked on by Jeannie. Apparently she hadn't stitched for years and years and years and came to the retreat because her friends asked her to. This is the center of sparkling peacock tile. This is one of the apples. I don't think we saw any apples on the brag table, but this is a whip that somebody was working on with the summer fruits. And here's another apple. It's possible that the same person was working on this, and I caught him at the beginning on the first picture and at the end of the retreat on the second picture, although I think different parts are done. So this must be somebody else's apple. And I believe this is Dragonfly Lace Mandala done by Susan from Criminally Creative, because I know she talked about it on her Flosstube, and I think that's this one. And this is somebody's whip of beaded dragonfly tile. And I'm pretty sure this is Julie's whip, but I cannot tell you for sure which mandala it is. Her Instagram is CompuWidget. And I recognize this as Venice Mandala. This is Paula's, and she is at PaulaH964 on Instagram. She's doing it on a beautiful lilac fabric. She wants to make it look like twilight, and a lot of the windows look like it's dusk. And this one looks like Arabian Walled Garden, Kelly, who is Pages and Stitches, Pages 3 Stitches is her Instagram and her Flosstube. I know she was working on this colored fabric. And this is Blue Moroccan Lace, and I think it might be Floors, because I think she was working on that one. And this looks to be the retreat piece, Flowers of the Sun, and it looks like it's also on the called for Mushroom Stew from Oak Crown Studios. And I don't know whose this is or what it is, but it does seem to be a Chatelaine. And there were no restrictions on what you worked on at the retreat. You could work on Chatelaines, you could work on whatever you felt like. This is the Abominable Bundle by Plum Street Samplers. Not sure who did it. And I think this was done by Andrea at Table 16. This is Celebration from Rosewood Manor. This is Lady of the Flag by Mirabilia. And I think this was being done by Melissa Wilson. This is red, although it looks like she's doing a blue conversion and doing it on a red fabric, by Pam of Stitching in the Land of Good Enough. That's for Flosstube at Instagram. And it is a Mirabilia design by Nora Corbett. And this is Nightingale by Mirabilia by Nora Corbett on a beautiful blue fabric. Here we have Paradigm Lost, and this is a Long Dog sampler. And Karen at Table 9 was working on Blue Indigo, and this is from Avela Folk Embroidery, or maybe it's Avila. Angela, who is Pretty Little Stitches, had this on her table as a finish. It's from Two Stitches. It's T-O-T-O-O, and they're very heavily beaded, specialty stitches, all those kinds of things. This is Pine Crossing from Robin Pickens, but I don't know who is stitching it. And this is Dandelion Wishes, also of Robin Pickens cross stitch. And then I have just a few more that I couldn't identify, and I don't know who did them. This is possibly the 1994 Christmas Madonna from Lavender and Lace, but don't hold me to it. These are freebies on the Told in a Garden website. And every year, Marilyn Levitt Imblum, who is also the designer of Lavender and Lace, would put out one of these freebies. And this is a beautiful non-chatelaine piece that was done from motifs from Forget-Me-Not design by Modern Folk Embroidery. And this was stitched on a 27-count Russian tea cake by Legacy Linen on this box that was made by Melissa Breckenridge. And she incorporated initials from family ancestors, and the stitching was immaculate. It looked like it was painted on. And as you can see, the stitching covers the whole box. It's on the top, it's on the side, it's on the front, it's on the back, and it's just beautiful. And if you open it up, inside it says, "We all carry inside of us people who came before us." And it says, "Wrought by," with her name and the year that she did it. Forget Me Not. And Melissa was such a delightful person to talk to. I had a little chance to have a conversation with her. Her stitching is immaculate, unbelievable, and she was very excited about the Tuscany modifications I made. So, because she had been to Tuscany with her husband who had passed away, and she was very game and excited to try to do her own design. And I was so pleased to hear that. Made my heart feel good. And it reminds me that the best parts of the retreat are the people. I always had no idea why anybody would want to go to retreat when I could sit at home and stitch on my couch. But you can't meet all those wonderful people from your couch. I had it backwards. I barely stitched, but I can stitch on my couch. I can't meet anybody else sitting at home. And these are the wonderful people I met. There were spots for 144 people. I think we ended up somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 because people had to drop out. But just a fabulous time. We had 23 tables of 6 people. There weren't maybe everybody at the table, but just a wonderful group of amazing, brilliant, talented, gifted stitchers. And on behalf of the entire Queen City Stitch Retreat team, we want to thank each and every one of them for making it just a spectacular weekend.
Okay, it's probably safe now to take off the protective eyewear. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you were inspired by all this beautiful work. If you are and want to stitch a chatelaine, or you just want to see them in person, maybe you're not ready to stitch your chatelaine, but you just want to see them, October 2027 will be the next Chatelaine weekend retreat to celebrate the 30 years of Chatelaine. Dates to follow, so we hope to see you then, but be sure to keep a lookout for it. Sign up for the newsletter at queencitystitchretreat.com, and you'll see all of that information coming for you. And this July, there will also be a retreat. Instead of Chatelaine, it's going to be Mirabilia. Now, Nora Corbett won't be able to make it, but who doesn't love a Mira? Let's come and stitch Miras and Noras and have a fantastic time. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Bye.